Revere the storytellers. It's a tradition that goes back to the dawn of man. We reward their creativity, we honor their talent, and every now and then we get to help them reach into the minds of an audience to try and capture their imaginations. And that's what I was able to do with Carl Macek. I helped him capture the imagination of his audience by helping him present his vision to that audience through a narrative form that hadn't yet been refined. In 1984, a small band of us here in Los Angeles had been writing, directing, and dubbing English voices onto a class of foreign productions we privately referred to as Indonesian grunt films. Each one was 90 minutes of live-action mayhem with a plot just thin enough to advance the action from one fight to the next. There are people in this audience today who have scars on their vocal cords from the screaming, the kicking, and the crying, and that was just when they saw their paycheck. It got better later. As voice actors, we learned to take a rock to the head, a spear to the neck, and an endless number of karate chops to various parts of our anatomies. We also learned about lozenges and gargling with everything, including salt water, to try and preserve our throats. And then Carl Macek came along with an idea that would change everything, except the gargling with the salt water. Nobody ever got over the yelling thing. Carl had familiarized himself with the Japanese anime art form, and he had found some material at Harmony Gold that he proposed to blend together to create a series. The material he found was already in series form in 3 separate Japanese narratives. Macross, Southern Cross, and Mosquito. But he had the audacious idea that he could rework the dialogue and the narration to create a new entity, which he called Robotech. And that's when he tried to kill me. We spent the next year of our lives working 6 and 7 days a week, sometimes, many times, recording dialogue until 2 and 3 in the morning, trying to keep up the production schedule on 85 episodes. I wore a lot of hats back then. I was writing, directing, script editing, and acting, and dying of combat fatigue. When we finished the series, I was so tired, I went to bed. I woke up a few weeks ago. I don't know what this Facebook thing is that everybody's talking about. I have a VCR for sale. Apparently, nobody uses tapes anymore. Carl in the studio went right on and started production on another show, which was Captain Harlock and the Queen of 1,000 Years. They asked if I wanted to work on it. I politely passed. As the years went on, I would get calls from Carl. He'd say, "Hey, Daddy-O, what's your schedule like? I got a show." And by then, I was ready to dip my toes back into the water, and the titles kept pouring out. We did The Lensman, Fist of the North Star, Aura Battler, Dunbine, Vampire Hunter D, and on and on and on. But really, it all comes back to Robotech. It was his baby, sprung out of his storyteller's imagination, with a past, a present, and a future that first existed in his mind alone, and then shaped through the contributions of a large number of writers, directors, editors, composers, and actors. He had to write the bridge material, all the exposition stuff, himself, because nobody else knew how to connect the dots. It was a pretty influential show. It was the first Japanese dub series to significantly impact the American audience and culture. This is not to dismiss series like G-Force, Simba, and Voltron, which came along a little earlier or around the same time. But nothing had the impact of Robotech. How do we know that? It's still popular. Read the blogs, go to the conventions. The original fans are just as devoted now as they were when they first discovered it, and new fans keep coming along all the time. There are 100,000 people who regularly sign on to Robotech.com. It's what they call an ongoing cultural phenomenon. Hollywood's even planning to make a live-action feature version sometime in the future. Warner Brothers is trying to figure out the best way to adapt the material. They hired Larry Kasdan to write the script. Too bad Carl won't be there to put his 2 cents worth in. The strength of his vision never dimmed all these years. He still had a lot of good ideas about where to take the story and how to get there. But they're going to have to figure it out without him. He did leave a blueprint behind. 85 episodes you can buy in the DVD stores or access online. We just hope they get it right as a tribute to the man who made the whole thing up in the first place. I'm not a religious person. sparks, whatever you want to call them. Each building block of the physical universe hums along and binds together to create the forms that we recognize and name. But I think some things exist on a vibrational plane that we can't access with our physical senses. Intellect and emotion, for instance. That energy, as with all energy, can't be destroyed, only transformed. And this is what I think happens to us when the molecules of our physical body slow down and stop vibrating with life energy. The essence of us, our thoughts and feelings, our consciousness, is transformed and lives on, possibly moving on to another plane of existence or possibly recycled into a new life or new growth. And that's where I think Carl is now. Not ceasing to exist within the vastness of the universe, but ceasing to interact here on this plane on the vibrational level that we can ascertain with our human senses. Beyond that, he lives on in the memories of the people who knew him, and for Carl, that would be a lot of living. He attracted quite a crowd along the way. But of course, he lives on in another way as well, and that's something that's unique to those who happen to work in the field of entertainment. It's those warehouses full of product. The tapes, the DVDs, the albums, the productions floating through cyberspace, the legacy of a person's creative output, the thrill that the audience feels when they're presented with an adventure from the imagination of a master storyteller. It all comes back to those 6 little words. Those little words that have always had such a big impact. Let me tell you a story. We're here today to salute a man who really knew how to do that. And we're all a little richer for having had him in our lives. In my tribe, we have 2 kinds of people, really. You can be a mensch or a putz. I don't know that many putzes. But there are a few mensches I want to single out and thank today. It takes a village when these things happen, and they are the glue that helps hold the village together. And so, for service above and beyond, I want to single out Barbara Goodson, Becky Olkowski, Tom Bateman, Shannon McBride Olson, Nancy Billington, Melora Hart, Kevin McKeever, Tommy Yoon, Tom White, and Frank Agron. On the family side, there's Svea's sister Bonnie, her mother Mary, and Carl's mother Lena, and of course there's Svea herself, who's been stronger than anybody has a right to be, and who has shown incredible grace in the face of impossible pressure. I'll tell you something you already know, but just to put it on the record, your friends will always be there for you. There's something that people do in this business when they want to show their appreciation for a job exceptionally well done. They stand up and applaud. And I would like us to offer one last standing ovation to a friend of ours who made that kind of impression on our lives. Here's to you, Daddy-O. A life well lived, a job well done.